All right, we're officially live now. Okay, so let's begin. So I'm thinking probably the best way to start this off is for you just to give us a quick look at your situation. You don't have to go too much in depth or in detail or anything like that. Maybe just 3 or 4 minutes so everyone listening who's tuning in or can get kind of an idea of what's going on with your situation.
Okay.
And by the way, this is Whitney.
Thank you, Chris. So I was in a relationship for about 9 weeks, and I am 28 years old, and my ex-boyfriend is also 28 years old. And at this stage in life, I know what I want, and he knows what he wants. We've dated multiple people, and I've been in several relationships which have failed. But at 28 years old, we moved very quickly. And I mean, I'm very old fashioned, and I feel like as a woman, men should be pursuing women. And so I don't typically instigate the serious talk. But my ex-boyfriend initiated serious conversations within 2 days after our first date, saying that he already felt like I was the one. It's saying he's never felt this way, and it's crazy. And we moved very quickly, and within the first 2 weeks of us dating, he had asked me to fly across the country to meet his family. And he told me I was the first girl to ever meet his family. And when I was visiting his family, his mom and sister were telling me how crazy it is that my ex-boyfriend brought me on the trip because he's never brought a girl home to meet the family. So as you can tell, we got
Got to make you feel good too,
it
hearing
did.
that.
And something I thought was so sweet, and I still to this day admire about his mom is the fact that she pulled me aside one night when I met her and gave me a hug, and she said, "I am so glad that my son has met you. You bring out the best in him, and I'm so glad it's you. You fit right in."
That has to make you feel good. That would make me feel good.
Yeah. So for mom to say that about her son's girlfriend, that's very important, and it's huge. But like I said, we got serious very quickly, and I don't know if that's where things kind of got sour. Like the honeymoon phase was over. I mean, if I had to explain our relationship, it was 9 weeks bottled up into a year and a half or 2 years. I felt like I'd known him a lot longer, but he made a point to say he wished that we could skip all of the formalities, etc. After we went on the 4th of July to visit his family, things changed a little bit. I know that his workload had increased a lot, and that was stressing him out. And he owns his own home, and he's lived by himself, so he's been very independent and alone for a long time. And he had a few guys move in with him, and they're younger guys that go out a little bit more than he does. So I feel like things changed once they moved in. And additionally, there was a health condition that him and his sister both did some genetic testing. There's a health condition that runs in his family, and so they just were trying to be precautionary and rule everything out. But he actually tested positive for carrying a gene for this specific condition. So I know for sure his mom was very stressed out about that. My ex-boyfriend, however, he didn't seem very stressed. He was just more reserved. And he was just anticipating, waiting 2 months to see a cardiologist.
Yeah.
And any specialists associated with this. I did the no contact. And
Did it well, by the way.
thank you. What's awesome, I highly recommend any woman going through a breakup, do the no contact. It works without a doubt. There were definitely days where I felt weak and I doubted the fact that I would hear from him. And I know that traditionally it's 30 days no contact. I do 45.
Yeah.
Because we ended up going, I think, about around 40 days no contact. But before you know it, I heard from him. And I think part of what...
No, I think it's important for you to tell what he said when you heard from him.
Yes. So
Obviously, you don't have to get into too many details, but this is an important aspect here.
it is. And I'll definitely tell you about that. But I would like to share with any women listening because this has impacted me personally a lot with my confidence, but just with my social life and my attitude regarding the breakup. Doing the no contact, don't just do no contact. You also do no contact, but do yourself. You want to treat yourself. So do something that makes you feel pretty. Go get lash extensions. Go get your hair colored. Go get your nails done. But don't just do that. Do something that helps others. So I got involved with Big Brothers Big Sisters, and I submitted an application to become a big sister so I can have a little and take them out to do fun activities. But in addition to that, I was recently recognized for one of my city's most wanted, which every year there are about 30 professionals that are nominated for being recognized in regards to what they're doing in the community or how they are doing good things within their career in their industry. So I've been, kind of getting exposed, professionally.
Phenomenal, actually.
Huh?
Yeah, it's perfect. That's exactly what you want to do.
Yes. So I've been able to go to all of these events related to being recognized as one of my city's most wanted. And it's been very rewarding because I'm not only making a difference in my community and helping to raise money for children, but at the end of the day, it's just when I can make someone else's day, my day is made. And so if you kind of have that mentality, you're going to get through it and you're going to feel better and you're going to come across as a better person, happier person, and more confident. So with that said, I did end up hearing from my ex-boyfriend after 40 or so days. And it wasn't via text. It wasn't a phone call. It wasn't a Facebook message. It was Snapchat. And what it ended up being was a Snapchat directly to me. And it was an image he sent of his, I don't know if it was lab results, but after he saw a specialist for this gene, the genetic mutation, I think all along he probably was fearful of his life looking back, because it is a serious condition if he did actually have the physical mutation within his body. But he sent me a Snapchat of his results from the specialist, and they ruled out that he has, there's no evidence of the mutation, and he just carries the gene. So he sent me that, circled the results, and sent a text on the photo and said, "Good news on my labs." And so for me, I didn't see this for a few hours. And if I had seen it as soon as he saw it, ladies, I recommend wait 2 hours. Let him kind of wonder. That's kind of what I always do, but initially. I ended up responding, and something I kind of live by is kill them with kindness. And I responded to that Snapchat via Snap text, and I said, "That's great news. I hope everything else is going well for you." Smile face. So he responded right away and said, "Hope all is well with you too." And that's it.
And that's where we are right now.
Yep.
We are up to date. That is where Whitney is right now.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a number of things I wanted to cover with you. So obviously I wanted to give you kudos on the no contact rule. You have no idea how many people come to the website and fail every single day. It's probably like an 80 to 85% fail rate on the no contact rule. But the fact that you actually went out and actually did things that were positive for you and your life, that is really kudos to you. But I know when we talked before we obviously started recording this, you were confused about what to do going forward. You didn't know if you were going to contact him, but you even had kind of an issue on whether or not you wanted to get him back, which is where I kind of wanted to start. I wanted to start by asking you what you really want. So I know that's like the most general question that anyone can ask you, but what is it that you want? Like if you look deep down inside, like if you could honestly just be brutally honest, if you want him back, that is fine. But if you do want to get over him, we can obviously kind of segue towards that. But I will obviously go into, now that I have kind of the more in-depth discussion of your situation, I can kind of give you some more maybe insights into why he's acting the way he's acting and everything. But let's just start by kind of defining a clear goal. So what is it that you want?
Great question. What I want is someone who is mature, someone who communicates well, someone I am attracted to. Yes, that does sound shallow and whatnot, but
No, it's absolutely not. And I think
you initiate a relationship.
yeah, I think looks, no matter what you do, they come into the picture.
Yes.
That it's a fact. And I think anyone who doesn't really agree with that maybe needs to wake up a little bit, because that's the society we live in nowadays.
I agree. But looks aren't everything. I mean,
They definitely
he's
aren't.
the hottest guy on earth, but once he says a few words, you're like, oh,
Yeah,
it ruins it.
exactly.
There's
There's more to it than looks, for sure.
Yeah. But for me personally, I'm passionate about my career, family, and friends, and I like to try to keep things upbeat and positive. So I look for something similar in a man. But communication and attraction, those are two very important aspects, and faith. Not everyone is religious, but, and it's not that I go to church every Sunday, but I am a believer in God, and I am looking for someone I can spend my life with and have fun with.
Okay, so you're looking for more of the marriage type of a situation. So you're looking for someone who you could potentially marry.
Exactly.
All right, so I think what we're going to do here is try to identify if this is the X for that, because he may be. I've interviewed a guy last week. His name was Neil Satin, and he and his now fiance, they had a breakup, and it was actually that breakup that caused them to eventually get together. So it can work. So there's definitely hope there. But I think the important thing, so that's what you're really looking for. Mm-hmm. So I think maybe a good idea is to look and see if this is the guy for that.
And I can answer that for you.
Okay, go for it.
I will tell you this. So I have always asked my mom and my sister, how do you know when it's the one? And your wife has probably asked, her friends and family the same thing.
She was talking about this very thing yesterday. I'm not even kidding.
I would love to see what she says.
We did an interview yesterday on some podcast called Together, where we were talking about our relationship. And she said the exact same thing, like, I just knew he was the one. So I'm assuming that's where you're going with it.
Yes, my mom and sister, they have both said, you just know. And I'm like, well, how do I know? I mean, that's like the worst answer you can give me, Mom. But they are absolutely correct, because the moment I met my ex after our first date, the rest was history. Like, I literally felt like I will not be dating anyone else ever again. And we were both just infatuated with one another. And the faith was there, the family was there, the career was there.
So on paper, he was the right guy.
Yes, there is one downfall.
Okay.
Two, actually.
Two of them. No one's perfect.
No one is. Typically I try. They say not to look for 100%, look for 80%. The other 20% you can work with.
Yeah.
But with him, he is very attractive, and I'm very loyal. So if we go anywhere public, of course girls are going to check him out. And of course guys will check me out. Like, I'm confident in who I am and whatnot, but I also respect loyalty in any relationship. And if a guy checks me out, I don't really eat it up. I
see. You don't kind of take it, maybe try to make him a little jealous?
I don't. I'm not like that. And
now, was he like that?
Not intentionally.
Okay.
Girls are so much different than guys. Girls will throw themselves at a hot guy.
Sometimes they're a little bit subtle, I will say.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I noticed that a few different times we had gone out with friends, and that bothered me. I can get over it, but that was one thing that did bother me. Something more important, though, the second thing is with his job. He works for a company where he might be assigned to a job in another state. Like, he was assigned to a job in Pennsylvania, and he was actually there for 2 years. It went a lot longer than expected. Typically, these projects should be 6 to 8 months.
Okay, so this is something definitely important to look at, especially if you're looking to marry the guy.
Yes.
So I guess I want to start. I have a lot of experience with long-distance relationships because my wife and I were in one for 6 months. Okay? And the only reason that our relationship really worked out is I had this job, and I can really do it from anywhere. remotely. It's an internet type thing. I had the ability to move from Texas to Pennsylvania. Interesting that he had the job there. And now we're in Florida, so we've been all over the place. But do you have a kind of job that could do that? Is that like a realistic option for you?
I don't, unless I start podcasting with you. No, I'm kidding.
Okay. Hold on.
Do what you do, because you are like a relationship whisperer.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Just stop.
No, seriously. I don't really. I've got a great career here where I live, and
so you're pretty happy with your career, right?
Happy, and what's crazy is I live 3 hours away from all of my family, and he lives states away from his. But in our relationship, when we were together, he did mention, well, there's ways around him not traveling. Number one, dependent upon his genetic testing and the results, that could restrict him from traveling.
I see.
That's factored out because now
he no longer has that.
But I think it's the younger engineers, for example, at his company, that they really go out on these job sites. So it's like the first 6 to 8 to 10 years. He's been there probably 6 years already. But he's mentioned that we could either make it work or we'll figure it out. Like, I'll do whatever I can to make it work.
Yeah, definitely a fly in the ointment. I'm not saying it's a killer, because he's not. He's still pretty close to where you are, I'm assuming.
Right now.
He's not yet.
Yeah, but we don't know of any job. Like, I mean, he might not have a job that he knows of until next week. They could be like, okay, you're going to go back to Pennsylvania for this new bid we won.
Okay.
So you feel uneasy.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's something definitely you have to consider. It is something that you really can't not consider, because it could happen. And even if you put all this work into trying to get him back, it could change the dynamic completely, because then you'd be sort of in a long distance relationship. And not saying that they can't work, but they can't work long term. You can't stay in a long distance relationship forever.
Yeah.
So I think it is something to consider. I certainly have my opinion. My opinion on what you should do is probably give it a shot and see where it goes, and hope for the best but expect the worst at the same time. And I think you have a really good head on your shoulders, because you even mentioned to me before we started recording that you would be kind of okay even if it didn't work out. Like, you're not going to lose any sleep over it.
Exactly.
Which is a perfect mindset to have, because we've actually found in our own research that having this mindset, kind of moving on, actually really works to get them back. And you even told me that with some of your own exes, this is what happened.
Yeah.
Right? In the past. Like, you've kind of moved on, then all of a sudden they came back into the picture.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
you were absolutely right. Like I said, you are a relationship whisperer, and the advice that you give, I followed. And it turns out that I'm very happy. Of course, I missed him a little. I mean, but I don't sit around and think, oh, poor me. I miss his smile. I miss laying next to him. It's not anything like that. You can't think about those things. When you are in the stages of breaking up, like when you're broken up, you have to think the worst. Like, think about the shitty parts, excuse my language, but you have to think about the negative aspects of the relationship and why you shouldn't be with him. And honestly, as any female or even any guy that might be listening, download a dating app. It's not, I wouldn't say for the wrong reasons, but it gives you the confidence to at least put yourself out there. It's the confidence that you need. I did it, and I've been dating, and I've been having fun. I've gone on some really unique dates.
Yeah, and I'm actually glad you brought that up, because that is something that a lot of women shy away from, especially if they're doing the no contact rule. They're afraid to go out on dates, and sometimes it's the best thing for them, because they come to this realization that maybe I wasn't so into my ex, or they can come to the realization that, oh, I'm really into my ex, I'm not ready to date. But you really don't know until you actually do it, you know?
Well, and not only that, but it gives you the confidence. And I've seen a lot of women who are fearful of getting on a dating app or being positive after the breakup, because they're like, well, I don't want this to push him away or scare him because
Yeah.
then he's just going to get mad and then he's not going to contact. No, it's reverse psychology. Men want what they can't have, and if they see that another man is taking you out, they're going to be more attracted to you, drawn to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess I'm circling around here to my original question way back. So what is it? Do you want him back, or do you just want to maybe move on from him? Do you want to give it a shot?
Give it a shot.
Okay. All right. So I think knowing that, we kind of have an idea of where we want to go and what we can do. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is you sent me like this very, very detailed explanation of every like important date, and you even sent like text messages.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting to see how into each other you guys were at the beginning of the relationship.
Yeah.
And I mean, you guys were into each other. You guys were moving quickly. And I even did like the math. It was like a couple of weeks and you were already like on the plane with him to meet his family. And then there was this weird turning point. I don't know, it maybe seemed like it was about a month and a half, 2 months in, where there was this turning point where you said you noticed something was off. And then a couple days later, bam, he drops the hammer. Like, okay, we're done. Mm-hmm. So I think when I look at the kind of situation like that, there's a couple of things that spring to mind. And I think the number one question we really need to ask is, well, why did he break up with you? And I have really 3 ideas for what could have contributed to it. Mm-hmm. So the first one, which we do have some evidence backing this up, is the health condition. Mm-hmm. So I was talking to my wife about this, your situation. She was curious. And so I was telling her about this health condition that he has and how I thought it was like, well, maybe he got really scared because even though we're trying to protect the health condition, this is kind of the health condition that could end your life early, right? This is like no joke.
Yeah. Right? And it also, another thing, men who work out, I think that fuels them, that makes them happy.
Yeah.
And this was a condition, if he truly had
couldn't work out anymore.
Yeah, he couldn't work out. And that's when
you lose a bit of your identity.
Now that I think of it, he stopped working out because he hadn't seen a specialist. And so he stopped working out. And I remember him specifically saying he had felt down lately. Mm. And this is around the time when you noticed our conversations kind of changed.
Okay, yeah.
Working out.
So, if I were a betting man, I'd put most of my stock in that, the health condition. And I think there's evidence backing this up because when he messaged you finally, he was super excited to let you know above all else that, hey, this isn't an issue. But I was talking to my wife about this, and she brought up an interesting point, so I'm going to steal it from her. She thinks it served as a catalyst. So I remember mentioning to you that, hey, I think he's probably thinks, okay, maybe I have X amount of years left in my life. I just kind of don't want to get tied down. I want to live it up. And I think this health condition serves as a catalyst for having those kind of thoughts. And you also said something interesting to me before we were on the interview about how you were on a date and the guy that you were on a date with mentioned that he saw your ex at a bar.
Yeah.
Lit up drunk.
Yeah.
So almost like he's partying and living it up,
Yeah.
And he even sent you a picture to prove it. He wasn't just making the whole thing up.
What's crazy, Chris, is that when I looked at the picture, I'm like, that's not my ex. And then I was like, send me another photo. So another angle. And no joke, I look at it and I zoom in. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's him. But he had gained weight because I assume he hadn't been working out.
Mm-mm. Yeah, it's interesting. So, I think that served as a catalyst for maybe the breakup. Mm-hmm. But the other thing that I maybe jumped to is you guys did go really fast. So you may have burnt out a little bit. So there was maybe not enough mystery, or he felt like, okay, he got you without really having to try too hard. Mm-hmm. And maybe it was really appealing at first. And then maybe it kind of died off a little bit, or the allure died off. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking that's probably not the reason. I'm thinking it's probably more due to the health thing. Mm-hmm. And then the third one I kind of jumped to is something that we don't know. Something we don't have enough information to maybe, he's kept it a secret in his mind. But I think this is, if I were to guess, it would probably be the health thing. Mm-hmm. And that is actually amazing news for you and your chances because guess what? It's not an issue anymore, right? So going forward, it's not really something that should hinder him too much.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other maybe headwind that you face when it comes to trying to get him back is you only dated for 2 months. And I know you mentioned that, yes, it felt like years. And from looking at your text messages and your conversations and all the dates, it was an intense connection. So there's no doubt about that. But at the same time, generally, the longer you're with someone, you have a longer time to establish a lasting connection with them. You maybe didn't have enough time to establish a lasting connection that you can really kind of sink into when you're trying to get him back. Now, there's a way around this. Maybe we need to work kind of building a lasting connection into when you're trying to get him back. But I was actually kind of curious to get your thoughts on this. Do you think 2 months was enough to really build up a lasting connection?
Honestly, I do, because not only was I supportive of his condition, some girls could be like, screw you, like, I am looking for a husband to spend a lifetime with another 60 years.
Yeah.
But I was supportive, and I helped him to find an in-network specialist just because I work within that industry.
Yeah.
Went out of my way to find the best doctor for him to go to.
They're very, very supportive.
Yeah, I was very supportive and understanding, and I'm like, we're going to get through this. But the fact that he flew me across the country to meet his family.
Big deal. No doubt. Yeah. Big deal.
So I feel like we built that type of, I guess, trust.
Well, I think to your point, he did reach out to you to let you know about the health thing, mm-hmm. right? And that is kind of a big deal. That's something that I wouldn't share with someone if that was happening to me. It's a big deal. It's not like he's going around like advertising this. Mm-hmm. So this is something that he did share with you. So that's a positive thing. And I think where you are right now is you're stuck. You don't really know what to do going forward.
Yes.
So you are obviously, if you are familiar with kind of the strategies and everything that I teach on ex-boyfriend recovery, I have a very specific way about going things. You do the no contact rule first, and then the idea is to slowly rebuild the attraction until you can kind of get a date. So I don't really see anything that's preventing you from doing that here. So so I think let's tear down your pride a little bit here then. So yeah. Really the next conceivable step is text messaging, right? You're going to text him, and that could be through Snapchat. That could be through a lot of different methods. But what are your qualms against texting him? Are you just kind of that kind of thing where I noticed you mentioned at the beginning, you're the woman, he needs to kind of come after you and chase you? That's the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah, that, and he's the one that, we moved fast, and maybe it scared him away. Maybe that affected his attraction because it wasn't as much of a chase, but he's the one who instigated all of the seriousness. So he kind of did that to himself, but I'm scared of rejection. Mm-hmm. I'm scared of being turned down. I'm scared of being weak, vulnerable, or coming across as needy or insecure, because I'm not insecure.
Believe me, you're the least insecure person I've probably met on ex-boyfriend recovery. So there's no doubt about that to me. And I guess I did skip over something that I did want to touch on with you, because this is an important thing, because let's assume that everything goes perfectly and you get him back, right? There is still one little fly in the ointment that you didn't mention. So you mentioned to me, and I think when I was asking you before this, hey, what kind of questions do you want me to answer for you? You mentioned that you think he may have slept with other girls during this breakup.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up.
Which I would say would put credence behind that health theory, because if it's serving as a catalyst to live it up, he would obviously want to do that. So let me get your thoughts on that. What do you think about that? And then I'll kind of talk you through it.
So I'm not saying all men, but I know how most men. There's actually a photo I saw on Pinterest out of anywhere. So, but it's, and I should send it to you.
I know exactly. You're the men and women breakup thing, how women are super depressed, but men are like super happy, and then it kind of changes.
Yes, so I think for all of you ladies listening, it's kind of crazy, and it hit me like a ton of bricks when I saw this photo. But as women, we are very emotional when we are broken up with or we go through a breakup. So after that, grieving stage, we want to veg out, eat ice cream, rebuild our self-esteem, and try to force ourselves to go out. And then eventually we're happy.
Yeah.
For men, it seems like they're celebrating the breakup. They're going out and partying, sleeping with other girls, and then they're grieving. So it's complete opposite. So it does take time. That's why I think you always reinforce the no contact rule, because it's going to take them at least 45 days, 30 days, 45 days to realize, oh man, this is what I lost because I just hooked up with this one girl and it's not my ex.
Yeah.
I don't like the idea of him messing around with other girls since we've been.
You shouldn't like that idea. That's a normal reaction to have.
Yeah, so I don't really know how to handle that because the photos I saw from a guy I went on a date with who saw my ex out, he was hitting on a girl. You could tell he was very close in her face, but you could also tell he was hammered. Like, I'm not comfortable with the idea of him having maybe slept around. I don't know what he did.
So loyal. I think we're going back to the loyalty aspect. Yeah. You're even though you've broken up, you're still loyal to him in some certain way.
I mean, trust me, I've gone on a handful of dates, but I'm also very, I am very old-fashioned, and I don't sleep around.
Yeah.
I value who I am and what I have to offer, and I don't just hand it out to anyone.
Mm-hmm. And now, do you have any evidence besides the picture that he's been going out doing this?
No, other than seeing on Facebook, someone checked him in at a bar, like a girl, and she was with another guy, and then my ex. But so,
well, I think it probably is safe to assume that he's trying to engage in that behavior. I'm not going to lie to you; that would just be a disservice to you. Yeah. I will say that I don't know his past sexual history. I don't know anything about his, game on getting girls, or so to speak, but it is usually not as easy as you'd think, even for a good-looking guy. So even though he may be trying, he may not have succeeded, because to even, I know there are some women that can give it up easier than others, but generally it is still a big deal to those women. So it's not as easy to get as you'd think. So you always have maybe that to hang your hat on. As far as getting over it, that is something that you don't have any evidence clearly of. Yes, he was at the bar drunk, hitting on a girl. It could be just him being drunk, acting dumb. Mm-hmm. I would say it would become an issue if you were to get him back. The jealousy and everything that you'd feel inside, it would eat you alive. Unless at some point you would talk to him about it and you were honest with him about it and could forgive him if he did it. He may, where it can get tricky is because let's assume you get him back and you have this conversation where you're uncomfortable about this issue and you don't know how to bring it up, but you decide, okay, I'm going to try to bring it up to him. And he lies and doesn't want to hurt your feelings or something. So you need to also understand that could be a possibility. So
that's when it turns into a bigger issue for me. Is I would rather hear the ugly truth than a pretty lie. Yeah. And so when I find out that, and what's crazy, I feel like I have a sixth sense. Honestly, like I know when something is up.
Yeah, you were able to pick up on that pretty good with the kind of when you saw the heart or the health thing was. I can edit that out.
Yeah. So I feel like. I don't know. I can read men very well. And when I ask a guy a question that I'm dating or a boyfriend, if we get back together, so did you hook up with anyone? I can tell you, like, I can tell they're lying. And that's when I feel like the relationship is spiraling out again. But if they just tell the truth from the start, I respect them more.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I think if you do get him back, it is something that you're probably going to have to talk about and work with him on. Just, I guess, come to the realization that he may lie about it because, and I don't think it would be a lie to hurt you. I think it would be a lie it would be a lie to protect you maybe from the truth, but also maybe to protect himself, and he doesn't want to seem like a man slut, Mm-hmm. So
I call them man whores.
Man whore, whatever, same thing.
So where I'm at now, I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
So, based on what you know, do you foresee him contacting me again?
Yeah, I actually think there's a really high chance that he will, even if you don't do anything. But I'm actually going to recommend that you do something here. I think it is an important step, and it's something that I recommend to everyone. I mean, we live in 2016 now. No one's going to sit back and say, well, they have to text me first. What matters is getting the ball rolling here and doing it in a smart way. That's part of the thing. But I am going to try to compose a text with you that you can send him so you get something out of this. But let's kind of get some of the basis of what we're trying to accomplish when you do text him, because this is really where most women fail.
Okay.
So when I looked at your situation, the first thing that really came to mind is something called the peak end rule. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
Okay, this is a beautiful thing, and it's something that you need to get real familiar with. So the peak end rule, basically, I think the person who created it won a Nobel Prize because of it, because they did a lot of research and found that it had a lot of different applications in different areas. So food, movies, relationships. But the peak end rule basically states that, I guess I'll start off by asking you a question. So when you remember an experience, do you think you remember it based on the whole of the experience?
No.
Correct. You don't remember it on the whole of experience. They found that you remember it based on 2 points, the peak and the end. Okay?
Yep.
And so the peak is the most intense, exciting, best part, and the end is obviously the end of the relationship. So the first thing that came to mind is you actually had a phenomenal relationship, and your peak was phenomenal, and your end wasn't really that bad compared to some of the things I've seen. Mm-hmm. So I think you would actually do really well when you text him. Obviously not right off the bat. You have to kind of build rapport and work it in, but emphasize the peak of your relationship. The more you can kind of bring him down and make him feel the feelings that he was feeling during the peak of the relationship, he's going to find you more attractive and kind of keep wanting to message you and talk to you and advance things. And he's going to want to feel it again. And I think you can really hook into that and make him super attracted to you. Mm-hmm. So what do you think of that?
I love it.
Peak end rule.
I like it a lot.
All right. So the other thing I want to talk to you a little bit about how human beings commit to one another, because this is something that I think he may have some issues with, especially with the health condition thing. So have you ever, I don't know, you may have read around my website recently, and I've been kind of snowballing this a lot, but have you ever heard of something called the Interdependence Theory?
I think I have, but I might need a refresher.
Okay, the refresher. So the Interdependence Theory is pretty simple. It basically states that human beings commit to one another on a cost and benefit scenario. Ringing any bells?
Yes.
Okay, this is something that...
Withdrawal.
It's interesting because I think your ex, when he looks at the relationships, when he looks at the relationship with you, based on the interdependence theory, there's really 3 things that you look at. So you're looking at the satisfaction, alternatives, and investment. So what I'm going to do right now is look at these 3 things from his perspective and kind of give you some insight into why he didn't ultimately want to commit to you. Mm-hmm. So the first thing is satisfaction. Honestly, it seemed really high to me, which is what you want. You want him to feel super satisfied with the relationship. That's great. Where really things get interesting is the alternatives. So I think at the beginning of your relationship, before this big thing happened with the health condition, his alternatives were low. Obviously, that's what you want. You don't want him to have a ton of alternatives, because if his alternatives are high, then all of a sudden he's thinking, well, maybe I can do better than her. Now, here's where the flying the ointment comes into play. The health thing served as a catalyst. So it caused him to think, maybe there are other alternatives out there that I want to experience. Luckily, the health thing isn't so much of an issue anymore. But he is already kind of committed to this one action of, hey, I'm kind of going to date around. I'm going to experience life before I die, even though it's not necessarily going to happen. And then the other thing, which is really where you struggled with the most, was investment. So really, when it comes to relationships, investment is things like time, things like marriage, engagements, things like that. You didn't really date a long time. So what we have here is even though you did a really good job of satisfying him in the relationship, and honestly, satisfaction and alternatives, there's a synergy between the two, because obviously if he's not satisfied with the relationship, he's going to think, okay, maybe I can do better than her. So his alternatives all of a sudden go up. And honestly, he was really satisfied with your relationship, I think. From my opinion, it's just that this health thing happened. I think his alternatives went up as a result of that. Mm-hmm. And the only problem is your investment was low. You hadn't dated him long enough probably to form a lasting connection, even though I know you think you did. When you look at it just from a bird's eye view, you only dated for 2 months. Mm-hmm. You need to get him to invest more time. So I think working this into the strategy when you're texting him, the more you can get him to commit to texting you back and forth, the more time he's investing into you. So basically what you're trying to do is get him to invest as much time as possible into you, because the more he puts his time in, the more he invests into your relationship, the better it is going to be for you. Mm-hmm. So you really don't need any pointers on satisfying him. You did a pretty freaking phenomenal job on that. The alternatives, I think, will take care of themselves as long as you work that peak end rule aspect where you're emphasizing the peak and trying to bring the feelings back that he felt during the peak of the relationship. And I think his alternatives will go down. Or here's the best part. So you may be the best girl that he's ever dated. And I'm not saying that lightly. I'm saying that as a matter of fact, because he only dated you for 2 months and nothing you did was wrong. Like, it seems to me you are the perfect girlfriend, unless I'm missing that you're some sort of axe murderer or something, which I don't think is the case.
I can tell you the things that he complained about towards the end.
Okay, yeah, that would be great.
Laugh. So I don't ever want to be the woman that is in a relationship, and as soon as her significant other gets home from work, he gets stressed out and dreads seeing her. I want to be his stress reliever. I want to make him smile. I want to make...
And that was a problem for him? This guy's nuts.
So I'm very chipper and goofy. Mm-hmm. And so say I get to his house and we're watching TV in bed and he's just not chatty. Well, me being me, I'm goofy. I try to be goofy to spark conversation, make him smile, make him laugh. I couldn't get a reaction out of him. So I did what's not me, is I kept pushing. I kept trying to be goofy. That ended up annoying him.
Okay.
I learned from that because he did tell me, he communicated that he found it annoying. What he said was, little things that initially attracted me to you now annoy me. It's not you. It's just, I don't know what it is.
Well, I think really it puts this, if you look at it from the lens of the health thing, everything's probably annoying him, because if you thought you had this issue, I'll give you an example. I woke up this morning with a stomach issue, and everything was making me irritable. Luckily, it's subsided now, but everything makes me irritable. Now, I can't imagine if I knew I had some sort of health thing, everything's going to make me irritable. So he probably, it's not that he all of a sudden grew tired of it. I think it's just impacted by this gigantic thing that's happening in the background. That's my 2 cents, at least.
Do you think that it would affect a man's sex drive?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
And I'm assuming from that question it did?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I think that would affect. And I think also it ties into the workout thing as well. Maybe he doesn't think he looks as good as he did.
He made comments like, I'm getting pudgy.
Yeah, so a comment like that, and I've actually made comments like that when I haven't been able to work out. So I can definitely... I'm in alignment with him on that, because I've made comments to my wife like, oh man, I think I'm getting, I need to go out and go for a 4 or 5 mile run to get the fat off. And even though I'm not fat or anything, it's just maybe an insecurity type thing that I have. So it's probably something that he's really insecure about. And I think that's a lot of why men work out, at least.
Yeah.
I remember when I first started working out, it was girls. I wanted girls to find me attractive. So there's 100% no doubt that if he can't work out anymore, it's like the snowball of all these bad things just started happening to him, and kind of took it out on you. And it's not right and it's not fair, but life is not fair all the times, and it's kind of our job to navigate and try to right the ship, so to speak. Mm-hmm. All right. So any more questions related to that kind of stuff? Because
No,
I love questions like that.
I totally agree, though. I think that it was a snowball effect, and I feel like he took it all out on me. And
Hmm.
that's what I kind of thought from the start. However, the health condition you and I discussed before, and you thought that was probably the primary reason for the breakup. I kind of disagreed with you, which
Yeah.
now I know never to disagree with you.
No, you can disagree. That's how you spark good
You
conversation.
proved me wrong, and you proved your theory right based on his Snapchat. Um, so I guess obviously I should contact him next because it's been, I don't know how long it's
Well, it's
been.
important to do it the right way.
Yeah.
So that's where most women fail. And I'll give you a really funny story. And the funny story is I recently recorded a podcast episode where I took a question from a woman who had a horrible message that she sent her ex after the no contact rule for the first time. So her contact, she was said something like, "Hey, I just drove past you in Glenroy."
Oh,
And it's not. So he obviously responded like, "Who is this?" So based on that information, you'd think, okay, maybe I'm not in his phone anymore. I mean, that's what I would think. But she took it a step further. She said, "Oh, I don't remember what she said exactly. I just remember said, oh, it reminded me of that time that I was in my bathrobe after I got out of the shower." And so after that, he goes, "Who the F is this?" And so obviously it went really bad. So as long as you don't do that, I think you'll be in okay shape. But I'm going to walk you through what you need to do.
I don't think I would do that
Yeah,
ever.
please don't do that. But I've heard pretty crazy text message. There was one woman who compared her ex to bear poop one time,
Oh,
which that didn't work out too well for her. But it's something that you do need to do the right way. But before I get to that, I do want to talk to you about one more thing that I want you to implement during your text message conversations with him.
okay.
This is the idea of mirroring. Now, have you ever heard of this?
I think, but it might be applied differently. So,
It applies a little bit differently. So imagine that you're in front of a mirror and you're looking at yourself. You're kind of winking at yourself because you're good looking. Yeah. So the mirror is just doing the same exact thing back to you, right? Well, let's apply that to text messaging. Let's say he sends you something that doesn't have a lot of thought behind it. He sends you like a text message like, "Hey," like a one-word text message. We all hate those, right? One-word text messages. So what most women do is they try to spark up a conversation. They try to get rid of the one-word text. So what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to give him right back what he gave you. It's a mirroring him.
yep.
Exactly. So
That's
make
what I would
sure.
do. Hey, exclamation mark.
Okay, that's exactly what you should do. So make sure you implement the mirroring thing. If he isn't giving you like a lot of thought or meaning behind his text messages, don't let him get away with it. You know, there are consequences to not doing that.
Yeah.
And one of the really big benefits of you messaging him first is you can kind of control the scope. So you can kind of set the pace, set the tone that you want him to maybe respond to.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure you try to implement that in whenever you can. And I think I don't need to really give you too much of a tips on this because it seems like something you're already doing naturally.
Yeah, I agree. I think yes, that the mirroring is a great idea, and that's exactly how I would respond. But I don't think I'm gonna. I just feel like I'm not going to hear from him again for a while. So I just I would love to craft the perfect
Yeah,
text.
let's get into doing that. So I have kind of a formula here for you to follow, and we'll go through it together.
Okay.
So the first thing in the formula is you need a theme for the text. And the theme of your text needs to be something, it's a hooking point. And you're going to utilize the knowledge that you have of him, something that he's fascinated by, something that you know he'll really, really respond to. An example off the top of my head was, I can give you an example for my wife and my ex. So my wife is obsessed with hot air balloons. So anything about hot air balloons, bam, she'll respond. My ex was obsessed with, strangely, skydiving. So anything about skydiving, which I'm not into at all, which is maybe why we broke up. But
I'd go with the hot air balloons.
yeah, the hot air balloons. So essentially what you need to do here is try to find a theme of your text. So you're going to utilize the knowledge that you already know about him. And you should know enough, been dating him for 2 months. What is something that he's really interested in? Something that you know is a hooking point for him. Light bulb.
Golf.
Okay. So we have our theme. Your text message is going to revolve around golf. But golf on its own is pretty boring, right? I mean, you can't just like...
He watches it on TV. It's that intense.
Well, I mean, like sending him a text message about golf may be a little bit boring. So we need to
get golf clubs for the first time recently.
Okay, that might be something.
Send a photo of my clubs.
Perfect segue. All right. So the next thing we're gonna do is to try to create a story. People respond well to stories, but you can't let this go overboard because it's a freaking text message, right? You don't want to seem too needy or like you're trying too hard. So the trick is to try to create a story that you can really fit in probably like 80 to 100 characters. Okay. So off the top of my head, maybe something about your golf clubs will be good. Like, I just tried hitting with my golf clubs for the first time, and it was like the most embarrassing experience ever. Some story where he can like visualize it himself, because he'll respond more to that. Okay. So do you have any thoughts on how you want to do this, or are you just going to steal my idea?
I like that. Well, okay. So when we went to spend the 4th of July and I met his family for the first time, the very first day of our activities and like getting to know his family, what did we do? We woke up really early to go golfing as a family.
Okay.
And I have golfed like an actual course, like 18 holes one other time. I've gone to the driving range, but with business, I've been trying to step up my game. But his sister actually took a slow-mo video of me hitting or attempting to hit the golf ball, and I totally whiffed it.
Okay.
So it was like kind of an ongoing joke, but it could be something along the lines of, good news, I got a sweet set of golf clubs. Bad news, I'm still whiffing the ball.
Okay, good. That leads me to my next point. So the next point is you need to tie in an action phrase. Okay, so the best way I can describe this is, imagine that you're just at a get-together. Let's say a get-together at a house, and you see some of your best friends communicating with strangers or something, and they're in a deep conversation, and they're all kind of huddled in a corner, and you walk up to them and you try to talk to them, but they're all in their own conversation, so it's like no one's paying attention to you. Yeah. What you need to do is snap them into attention. So imagine that you were just to walk up to these people and snap as loud as you possibly can. What would they do? They'd probably stop the conversations and look at you, but you've got their attention, and that's what we need to do with this text. So before you tell your story with the good golf theme, you need to come up with an action phrase, something that, because we're busy now in today's lives, you know, it takes a lot to get us to respond to a text message. So what we're going to have to do is send him something that will make him stop what he's doing and snap his attention into place. So a phrase like this can be, oh my God, or you're not going to believe what just happened, ... Something along those lines that will interest him or pique his interest to make him go, well, what's going on? So usually what you're going to do, and off the top of my head, I don't know exactly what golf text you're going to use, but let's assume you're going to use the golf swinging, missing kind of thing. So it would go, your text would go something like, you aren't going to believe what just happened to me. And then he'll respond, what just happened? All right, you've got him hooked, you've got him peaked. Now it's time to bring it home with the story. So the story and the theme is an important concept, because if you really kind of sit back and think, okay, this golf thing's really not going to intrigue him the way I thought it would, the action phrase is pointless. The story is really what brings it home and is going to try to get him engaged in the conversation. So it would go, oh my God, you're not going to believe what just happened to me. And then he'll go, what? And then you'll say, well, the good news is I got a new pair of golf clubs. The bad news is I still suck. Something like that.
Yeah.
That might work to get him responding to you. And if he responds, I want you to end the conversation right there and then. But I'm sure you've probably read the book or read the website and know that that's kind of what I do. And the reason we do this is because of, you've probably heard me say it, and I'm going to mispronounce it because I always mispronounce this stupid psychological, the Zeigarnik effect. That's how it's said. Okay. So basically, people remember uncompleted tasks better than completed ones. So the more you can end the conversations first, the more you'll hook them into wanting to talk to you again. So that is probably the best advice I can give you on the starter text messages. But where things get really tricky is people are always under the assumption that you have to think of these awesome, amazing text messages every single time to start a conversation. That's not necessarily true.
That's more.
Sometimes, yes. Yeah, at the beginning, you usually want to do these thought-out text messages. But once you get more rapport built and you're talking to them more and more and more, it's okay to, start a conversation with, hey, what are you up to? Or something like that. Which a lot of people always think they need the perfect text message to start a conversation first. Yes, that's the case after the no contact rule, but you just ignored your ex for X amount of days.
3+ days.
Yeah. It might be kind of weird just coming out of the blue, but luckily he's the one who contacted you first. So it's a good thing that he did that. It makes your job a little bit easier contacting him.
Mm-hmm.
So any questions so far?
Do you think it's weird that he has not tried to contact me since, when was that? It's been at least a week and a half ago, I think.
Yeah, like a week and a half, 2 weeks. I think he was probably contacting you for 2 reasons I can conceivably think of. Number one is to let you know the good news. And it's good that he wanted to do that. It's sweet, because you were one of the first people that popped into his head. Number two, he was also testing to see how you would react, which is something I would do. And
how did I react based on your opinion?
Perfect. I honestly thought you played it perfect. Playing hard to get as much as people... I don't like playing games in relationships, I'm not going to lie to you, but they work. Playing hard to get has been scientifically proven to work. Like, there's no doubt about it.
I totally agree with you. And I think that we should change this up. We shouldn't call it a game anymore, because it's human nature.
Yeah, it is. Everyone has different things that they do, I guess. Yeah.
Men like to hunt.
That's true.
Chase.
Men do.
It's not a game. It's just reality.
It is. Yeah.
So it's not abnormal that I have not heard from him.
No, it's not at all. And I think
it's baiting me.
Yeah, he is.
Okay.
That would be something that I would do. That's how I know that. All I have to do a lot of times is just think, oh, what would I do in this situation? Or how would I act? What would be the purpose behind me doing that? Mm-hmm. So the purpose behind me doing that, there would be 2 purposes, like I said. Number 1, tell you the good news. Number 2, see how you'd react. He may be starting to regret his decision. I've already, I think, mentioned to you, he definitely had the grass is greener syndrome. He definitely thought, okay, grass is greener on the other side. But the good news in your favor is you were pretty much the perfect girlfriend. So comparing that level to other girls, I'm pretty sure maybe other girls might be up here, but before long, when the honeymoon period ends, they drop, you know? So there's not many other girls out there that can probably compete with what you've created with him. Even though it's a short amount of time, was impactful. You know, he did message you probably. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he probably messaged his friends and his family, but no girls he's hitting on, you know?
Yeah, I don't see him taking another girl to meet his family for a very long time. I mean, it's got to be serious.
Yeah, that is definitely a big step. So it's a positive thing for sure. I think the other thing, let's just kind of pause and say, do you have any more questions related to texting? Because I'm sure you probably have a few more.
No, okay, I do. Should I do iMessage? Because if you don't have an iPhone, I'm judging. No.
I do have an iPhone, yeah.
No, should I text him or should I Snapchat?
Very, very good question.
Because I can see when he has opened my Snapchat text, just like he did to me.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I would ask you first, what was like your preferred method of texting communication? Was it Snapchat or was it just texting?
In our relationship, it was texting and phone calls. And that's what I loved about him, was the fact that he was very good with communication. A lot of my ex-boyfriends, that's half the reason I broke up with them. Right. We're not in a relationship anymore, and he doesn't, not to sound rude, but he doesn't deserve my enough attention from me to get an actual text.
Yeah.
He didn't have the guts to send me a text with the good news on his results. he sent a Snapchat. Maybe he did it to see if I would open it.
Which you did, and you responded to it, which is right. You did everything right. On the top of my head, I think I would go with a text message. Snapchat, you can't really... I mean, yes, there's the added aspect of the video or the picture, but it's a little limiting on how much you can write, I'm assuming, right? So maybe telling the story might be a little bit easier. What does he check more, I guess, is what I'm getting at. Is it like 50-50?
Yeah, I mean, he does Snapchat a lot, but he was very good with communication via text.
I would go with text, and I would say that Snapchat, it's a good thing because now you have kind of two ways of contacting him, so you can kind of mix it up.
It just sucks because I won't know if he doesn't respond.
Oh, does he have he doesn't have an iPhone? I see.
He does have an iPhone.
Oh,
but
he does.
Doesn't have his read receipts on.
That's stupid.
I know.
Thing.
I know.
That's stupid, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always the question. I think it actually leads me to my next point. Let's talk about what happens if he doesn't respond. Let's kind of have a contingency plan here.
Yeah.
Not everything, even though I can come up with the perfect text message for you, not everything works out all the time. That's something I can't guarantee how he's going to react 100%. I maybe can give my best guess. So what are we going to do when he doesn't respond? Well, a lot of women give up immediately. They think, oh God, the world's ending. Things aren't going my way. I put all this effort in, but that's not the way to react.
No.
I think
move on with life as normal as I have been.
Well, yeah, that's definitely a great mindset to have. But I would say the first contact text message, it's really one of those things where you have only a couple of shots at goal. That's how important it is. Mm-hmm. So as much as it pains me to say this, as much as it probably is going to upset a lot of women who've already failed doing it, it is one of those things that you can mess up if you try too many times in the wrong way. But every single text message you send gives you some data that you can use. So okay, I sent this text message. He didn't respond. This is important data to know. So he didn't respond to that type of a text message. Maybe next time you can try a different type of a text message. This is going to sound really weird, but I've always had really good success with videos. And you mentioned how people are really into videos nowadays. Sending a video just of yourself. I used to send my wife when I first met her. The first thing I sent her was a video. And I sent that because I wanted to be different than any man that she had ever dated. And it worked. She opened it up and it was just a video of me sitting down eating breakfast saying, hey, I don't even remember what I said, but I'm probably was like, hey, I'm Chris. Just super excited to get to know you, blah, blah, blah. I said a bunch of stuff. And I think I had a banana I was peeling, doing it too. Uh-huh. Something simple and real like that might get him to respond a little bit easier. You can send that through Snapchat or you can send it through iPhones. It's just really up to you.
An attempt, contingency, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would try as a contingency plan. If that doesn't work, I would say you really have 3 shots at goal. So you can try 3 times, and if he's not responsive at that point, your chances aren't necessarily done, but it is good to have the mindset, okay, well, it's just time to move on. And you will find, I still think he will contact you at some point. And like I've mentioned, it's the craziest thing, but oftentimes when women hit this point where, okay, I am getting over him, that is the moment that they come back into the picture.
The vibe, it's the energy you put out to the...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I think that's another human nature thing where the moment you just give up and stop thinking about him and focus on you and maybe another guy, it's like they sense it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
I agree.
So I think we're just going to end it here because it's already been an hour we've been recording. But before we end it, you might have some questions that I haven't answered yet, so go for it, rapid fire.
Considering I am happy and content with my life, should I even attempt to get my ex back? I quickly fell in love with him, and it was truly amazing, but I'm doing great as is. So, what would Chris do?
Chris would So I don't like living life with regrets. I would try everything there is to try, and if it failed, I would move on. That's what I would do.
Oh, last question.
Okay.
I note, I did and this was not intentional. I left a maxi dress at his house, and I really would like.
Yes, that's a.
And I think I think I might have left a pair of like my business work slacks there, and my favorite. I can't find them anywhere else, so I would like to get them back at some point. I don't know what to do about that.
Okay, this is actually I'm glad you brought this up, and I'm glad that I didn't end the episode because this is an important thing to talk about. Leaving stuff, especially if you're kind of in an older, more mature relationship. Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of the people who come to ex-boyfriend recovery can be in high school. They're not at the point where they're just sleeping over or leaving stuff at the house. But we also have probably like 40% of women who are in your age range. So for those women who are listening, there's really a specific protocol that you have to approach here. Number one, you aren't really going to be in no contact anymore. So you have an awesome opportunity to make this into an instant date. So at some point, you can kind of have it in your back pocket. You can kind of, if you are trying to fish a way to see him in person, this is the ultimate opportunity to do it. You can kind of have it in your back pocket, even when enough attraction and rapport has been built where you think, okay, this is the time I am ready to see him in person. I think I've done enough to reattract him. I've kind of gotten him down in that peak aspect of the peak end rule. You can use this as a method. Hey, I think I left something at your house. Do you mind if we meet up real quick and we can get it? It's an instant date. That's only for you though, okay? So the interesting thing is if you were in the no contact rule, this is one of those cases where you can break the no contact rule early just this once to get your things back if they are important enough. I think to you they are important enough.
Yeah, but I would say for a lot of female listeners, I personally, just from my experience, I probably wouldn't break no contact early because as soon as they see him, it's going to bring back all of those feelings. Mm-hmm. I would probably just go out and buy a very similar maxi dress to avoid those hurt feelings. Because it's like every day of no contact, I see as empowerment.
Yeah, it is. It is absolutely.
But now that I'm past the no contact, I think it's a great way to have a date, see him in person.
Instant date, yeah.
So should I mention that after my first text at some point down the road?
Yeah, some point down the road, I would say it's important that a lot of the times, by the time I can tell how good a woman will have a chance at getting her ex back by the time she gets on her date. So if she's on her date and she hasn't done a good job at building attraction, at getting on the phone with him, making him invest time, and really putting in that work, she's not going to get him back on the date. But if she's done all the work, she has a really good chance of succeeding. So a lot of times, a lot of it really revolves around the work that it takes to get on the date. So make sure that before you do this instant date idea that you feel you've done enough to rebuild things, kind of pique his interest a little bit more.
Date him and then reel him in.
Yeah, that's kind of what we're doing here.
I like that. Well, that's so helpful, and I thank you so much for everything.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a pleasure having you on.
Yes, thank you. You are awesome, and I can't thank you enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I will keep you posted once I get the nerve to send out this text.
Yeah, definitely do.
I might run it by you first.
Yeah. You got my email?
Yes. But thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.